Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work.
Hello. In this episode, I want to talk to you about how to transition into a career in tech. So this is relevant for people who are considering becoming a founder or investing in a tech company, or if you're maybe a lawyer at a big traditional law firm like Clifford Chance, and you are thinking, well, this whole tech industry has a lot of opportunity and I don't want to completely change everything that I've been doing, but I want to get some of this big tech pie. So the tech pie is actually really, really big. As we've seen during this lockdown and the pandemic, the global economy hasn't been doing so well. But tech stocks really have. The valuations of big tech companies have just grown and grown on the stock markets. And that makes sense because if you actually think about how we've been behaving when we've been at home, I mean, thank God we've had the internet, thank God we've had technology. Because how else would we do pretty much all of our shopping, most of our work, and a lot of our socializing? Since so much of our world and so much of our behavior has had to go online, it only makes sense that tech companies are benefiting. So either they're benefiting because we're literally on them, so our attention is there. So we're paying companies like Facebook and Google with our attention. Remember, we don't pay to use Facebook with money, we pay with attention. So the more we're spending on Facebook or Instagram, the more adverts they can show us. Or we're actually signing up to things. So we're signing up to online classes, we're doing fitness memberships, we're buying Pelotons, all of that good stuff. So that means that the tech sector essentially has more opportunity these days. And it also means that there's more opportunities for tech-enabled businesses. More opportunities means that there are more opportunities for exciting, interesting jobs in technology-enabled companies. Why is that? It's because essentially if a company has more money, then they can spend it on more interesting projects. And in general, companies that have more money are more willing to take risks. So that means if you're really into experimenting and innovating and being creative, a company with a bigger balance sheet is a company that you want to go to. So basically, more jobs and better jobs. Another opportunity is investing. There have been many studies that show that companies that have been started during economic downturns have generally done better than those started at boom times. Why is that? It basically means that you have to be super inventive to get money out of people who don't want to give it to you. Companies that are super inventive from the start are companies that essentially have the right DNA to then succeed. A really good example of this is Airbnb. Airbnb was started during the financial crisis when people were more open to letting strangers into their homes and renting out their spare room because essentially they needed a bit more extra cash. Would a company like this have even been created or have even been thought of when people didn't need extra cash? Probably not. So there are opportunities for interesting jobs, there are opportunities for interesting investments, and there are opportunities to create your own interesting companies right now. So all of this is fantastic, but might seem a little bit useless if you're just sitting there and you're thinking, well, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a lobbyist, or I'm a journalist. What am I supposed to do with this information? I've never invested anything. Or right now, I'm not going to be investing any of my own money. Are you kidding? I'm taking a payment break on my mortgage. Or you're thinking, well, I haven't even done any of this stuff. I haven't participated in any kind of tech projects, so I don't even know where to begin. So this is essentially what I want to go through with you today. In order to transition into career in tech, you need to understand what the opportunities are and how to get there. So here are some roles for non-technical professionals in tech companies. Product manager. We've had quite a few product managers on this podcast, so just listen to any of the product manager sessions. You'll get quite a lot out of that. User experience designers. So the last episode was with a designer. We've got quite a few people speaking about design. But those are jobs for non-technical people to co-create a product. But there are also clearly jobs in tech companies that are going to also exist in companies like Shell, which is definitely not a tech company. So you'll have operations, you'll have finance, you'll have legal, you'll have communications. For example, you are doing communications, you're working in PR, you're working in lobbying at a big oil company right now. And you're thinking, well, I want to get into a big tech company instead. Well, what do I do? Do I actually need to learn to code? What do I need to learn about technology? The answer is you need to learn something about how tech products are made. You don't need to learn to code, but you need to understand what product managers do. You need to understand what data scientists do. You need to understand what is a backend. Because essentially, if you're working in, say, PR in LinkedIn, you're going to have to be talking about some of this stuff. So if you have no idea what it means, then you're going to be pretty screwed. The reason why I bring up LinkedIn is I actually spoke to somebody for one of my Forbes articles who literally works in PR at LinkedIn. So her name is Sophie Seek, and she works a lot with data scientists in order to use the data that LinkedIn has to tell stories about the world economy, which I think is really, really interesting. Obviously, LinkedIn has lots and lots of users, and LinkedIn, therefore, has a really interesting, unique view on where the job searches are people looking for work more, are people looking for work less, etc., etc. Because there's such a huge amount of data, you can't just have an analyst with a spreadsheet analyzing it. You need a data scientist. But data scientists, God bless them, are not PR people. There's a completely different jobs. So Sophie needs to work out what data scientists do and what kind of questions they can answer, so then she can take some of the studies that they have created and essentially package them up into interesting stories that journalists are going to write about LinkedIn. When I spoke to her for this Forbes article, I asked her what did she actually have to learn in order to work with the data scientist. And essentially she said that obviously she was learning on the job, but she also took a bunch of courses. And those courses were not about how do you become a data scientist. She did not do a 6-month intensive data science course where you essentially become a data scientist. No, it was more courses about basic statistics, basic economics, and courses that help you transition into tech. Again, let's use an accountant as an example. If you're an accountant and you want to transition into a big tech firm, you need to understand what the costs are. So you need to understand that a tech company is going to have Amazon Web Services costs. You need to understand which costs are going to be variable, which costs are going to be fixed. Again, do you need to code? Do you need to work with developers? Do you need to understand really how the back end all fits together? No, you just need to understand how the tech sausage is made. You don't actually need to make it yourself. So what I'm saying here is that concepts matter and skills don't. So you need to understand several concepts, but you don't actually need to learn to code yourself. So here are the concepts that I found have been really, really useful. What is a tech stack? Literally tech stack. That basically means back-end development and front-end development. You need to have a basic understanding of product management. The fact that product management is a job, that's a good way to start. What product managers do and who they work with. You can begin by listening to some of the earlier episodes that we've had in this podcast. Another concept you need to understand is user experience design, and that can also be interchanged with product design. And as I learned literally when I was transitioning into tech, that user experience design is not the same as making something beautiful. It is not the same as graphic design. I used to think that design was essentially what Jean-Paul Gaultier did. And yes, that is definitely true, but designers in technology do something vastly different. Whatever you want to do in a tech company, whether that's invest, work in one, or create one, you need to have a basic understanding of what designers do. Again, our previous episode on design is going to be a really great introduction to that. Another concept that you need to understand is cloud computing. Cloud computing is basically the way tech companies all store stuff now. And by stuff, I mean our data. Let's take Netflix. all those movies and all those series that are available on Netflix, when you switch on Netflix, they're not downloaded directly to your computer, but Netflix stores them somewhere. That somewhere is basically the cloud. And that's where you have the rise of cloud services. Again, you don't need to know exactly how everything is made. You don't need to make it yourself, but you need to understand what it is. Another concept that's kind of at the foundation that you have to have a grip on is algorithms. There is a podcast episode where I introduce what algorithms are, so just go back a bit and find the Introduction to Algorithms podcast. So algorithms are basically just sets of rules that are written in computer code. Another concept that's very important to understand is big data. So what is big data? I mean, we all know what data is. That's basically information. Big, you would assume it's a lot of it. That's pretty much it. So let's go back to our LinkedIn example earlier with Sophie, the PR person there. Why do they need data scientists? Why can't I just do it with a spreadsheet? Basically, it's because LinkedIn has lots and lots of users, and those users are producing lots and lots of information. So each time they log in to LinkedIn, LinkedIn knows. Each time they like a post or communicate with somebody or search for a job or post a job, LinkedIn has that information. LinkedIn has too much information just for a person to sit there with one spreadsheet and try to analyze all of that information. So in order to analyze all of that information properly, you need to have data scientists. So data scientists essentially work with a lot of user data and a lot of behavior data to understand how people are behaving and essentially to make products better and often to sell more. So big data, artificial intelligence, algorithms, they're all connected. And again, you don't need to understand how to make the stuff yourself, but learning the concepts of what they are, that's going to help you pretty much no matter what you're doing. If you want to make a career transition into tech, this is a summary of the concepts that you need to have a grasp of. The tech stack, and that includes the back end and the front end. You need to have an understanding of product management. Basically, that it exists and a very basic understanding of what product managers do. You need to understand design, user experience design. Remember, that's not the same as graphic design. You need to understand the idea of cloud computing and servers. Again, don't freak out. You can literally learn this in a very simple course. You need to have some understanding of what an algorithm is and how it gets made. You also need to understand basically what big data is. If you understand how big data and algorithms are used to create AI, you're basically going to be ahead of the pack of pretty much anybody. I've told you all of these concepts and you're probably thinking, oh my God, I've already got my serious career. I've got a bunch of things to do. I'm also trying to be a healthy human being and go for a jog occasionally. And also, frankly, I don't want to spend all of my time learning all these tech courses. So I just want to leave you with something that my friend, who is one of the top angel investors in technology in New York, said. His name's David Segura, by the way. You can hear his episode earlier on. He said, you should become fluent and knowledgeable of software trends and best practices, but you will not get credit or a moral victory for becoming an average coder in a world that only values excellence. So if you're thinking of transitioning into career in tech and you're seeing all of these coding courses and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got to take this 6-month intensive boot camp that's going to cost me $3,000 and it's also probably not going to be much fun, and that's the only way that I can become a product manager or that I can get a communications job at LinkedIn. No, that is not true. Don't do that. Learn the basic concepts and get involved in digital initiatives, but don't stress yourself out by learning skills that actually you're never going to be using. So in practical terms, what can you actually do today? So we've got our What Non-Technical Founders Really Need to Know About Tech course. It is currently running, so it's too late to register for this enrollment, but we will be starting it again in November. So if you're interested in that, so just sign up to our mailing list and I'll tell you when it starts again. Also, our membership teaches you a lot of the basic tech concepts and actually you get masterclasses every Tuesday with experts. So that's a great way for you to learn and get some live coaching as well. Another thing to do is get involved in digital initiatives now, because in order to see how the sausage gets made, and here I'm talking about the tech sausage, you need to actually participate. So yes, our membership is fantastic. Yes, a course has been taught at London Business School. Yes, all of that is true. However, don't just learn from me and then just think I know stuff. You actually need to implement what you've learned. So that basically means either working on something that you've created or getting involved in a startup team and working as a volunteer, learning what they're doing and learning from your mistakes and from their mistakes. Also, if you're working in a big company, find the product managers at your company and ask them if they need help, or just ask them if you could have a coffee with them and understand about what they do. Maybe you'll have some interesting ideas for how their jobs and their lives could be easier. The third part is networking. Everybody who I've seen who has transitioned successfully into the very lucrative tech sector has spent time networking. And so that basically means, like I said, if you're working in a big company, find the product managers in your firm and see if you can get involved in their project. If you're not working in a big company, find other people who are interested in making this kind of transition. This is exactly why we have community meetups on Tech for Non-Techies, where you can meet other people who are working towards the same kind of goals. Maybe you can share ideas, maybe you can collaborate, maybe you can work on a project together. And that project doesn't have to be a $1 billion company. That project just has to be something that teaches you some basic skills and that then you are able to put on your resume. So that's learning basic tech concepts, getting involved in digital initiatives, and networking with people who are already working in technology, and also getting support from people like you who also want to make the same kind of transition. But the most important thing is it can be done, and don't freak out. You don't have to go and completely retrain and do a completely different degree. This is not what you need to do. You need to learn some concepts. You don't need to learn skills. And then you just need to put one foot in front of the other and find digital initiatives and get involved. I hope this helps. If you want more, then sign up to our newsletters. I really love writing them, and I've heard that people really like reading them. So if you want more of this, sign up to them. And that's on techfornontechies.co, and the link is on the show notes. On that note, have a wonderful day. Speak soon.